I'm going to probably, I mean, I could echo everything every one of you said. I used to drive the pickup off to the farm in Orient to Cedar when I was 12 years old. So I understand. I was born in Spokane, but I was raised in Orient, Northport, graduated from Colville High School, raised 3 children in Kettle Falls. They all went to college, they all went to the coast, they were successful. I'm pretty happy and proud to have done it. I went on to college, WSU, graduated with a degree in forestry. And I'm giving you background for a reason, so not right on the regulations to begin with. My view of what has happened with the regulations. Anyway, I got out of college, went to work for Boise, became their timberlands manager. I worked there for 29 years, from 1970 to 1998. We used to have what we called timber under contract for Boise. We harvested and supplied the mills with 200 million board feet, which is a lot less, okay? And for them to survive in those days, there were more mills around, 2 or 3. We had to have some kind of assurance that there would be logs coming next year and the year after, so we bought timber sales from the Forest Service. Forest Service happened to put up 180 to 100, and the goal was 120 million feet. We bought BIA, tribal, state with private land timber sales. We went from 30,000 acres to 270,000 acres of our own. It took probably 5 people to manage that 270,000 acres and procure wood and supply mills with logs. At that time, the Forest Service put out 90 million. Roughly, I'm not going to specify exactly, but they have the same number of employees as they do now. Pretty close. They've rearranged their offices, they've done a lot of things, but when it comes to providing revenue for the counties, the schools, their history. I visualized, and I'm going to go beyond that a little bit. When I did leave Boise and walked across the street, we started the Cedar Mill. I am the resource manager, not the CEO. But I met the family that wanted to move up here, and I assured them there would be enough cedar. And one of the backups was, there's some federal land that someday we provide some wood for. Just as most all of you know, the mill down the street did nothing but cedar. We have outlasted it, and we don't cut near as much as they do. But we've been able to obtain the volumes necessary for the mill. If other mills go down and don't harvest off of federal, state, other private lands, they won't harvest cedar. So we're obviously going to be on the downside of that slope too. I skied in the clear cut on the other side of 49 degrees north when it was 49 degrees before it was 49. So we would ski and the clear cutting, all the things, all the issues we've gone through forever have just basically started layering upon layering upon layering of regulations. Creating new departments to create new regulations. I went through the timber wars, and I was very, very involved up to the last minute when we were completely surprised by the opponents' last minute rhetoric that just kind of blew it out of sight. And that's all history. But having gone through that and having moved away from the timber under contract with Boise and into the Cedar, I'm more into just kind of trying to help people go through this. I'm part of the Forestry Coalition. You'll see some changes happening, and they're good changes. Most people don't understand that, or they don't understand why or the mechanism. But I can tell you, the Forest Service has finally gotten to the point they put out 30 million. And really, the push is to get that up to 80 million. They can't do it because what you said earlier really struck me. what has happened to the federal employees, forestry employees? Basically, after the wars, when NEPA began, the appeals process started. So basically, I believe they were layered by fear of being appealed. They had those 60,000 decisions to make, but by golly, they weren't going to make one that got them in trouble. So now you can imagine that whole personnel, and they're all nice people, they're all trying to work hard, but they have no push to put out timber sales. It's an excuse after an excuse, no way to reduce their costs, not like a business. And, you know, honestly, they should throw everything out, we should, and start all over, because we're going to add another layer trying to fix the prior. And how do you get through that? I mean, there's ways to get around some of those things with federal things. I don't want to bore you with that completely, but points on another subject, point source, will put the industry out of business. It really will, in my opinion. In experience, I believe that will close. I think the...
Talk a little bit about that.
Well,
why? What does it mean to you?
If the EPA and DOE become involved, and you know, we talk about permitting, putting a culvert in or taking out a culvert.
And just talk about how you currently do it and what it's going to mean to you moving forward. Just so.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just talk about what you currently do and what this proposed rule would mean on you moving forward, because you say it would, you know, it's going to devastate the timber industry, and I just want people to understand in as simple terms as possible.
That's fair.
Okay.
Okay. I'm harsh on that, but it's
not the first time I've heard this.
Okay, heavily regulated already by the state on pipelines. Our maps, you have to identify every road, every culvert, every ditch, every runoff where it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to maintain it appropriately, and that's for a little bit larger landowners. Now, if the EPA requires another layer permit, and then you have to have monitoring and do all those things. Can you imagine the cost of doing something culvert up on a hillside on a road, which is just the beginning? I mean, you have to go through that whole process. How long will that take? And then how long will it take until every culvert on your property has to be monitored and regulated to the degree you just can't afford to have it.
How many culverts do you have?
Boise has had. I'm with Columbia Cedar, so I'm on the buying pyramid. I mean, tens of thousands. You know, they are definitely one every quarter of a mile on a main road. Depends on the slope. I don't have that many. It's huge.
That's good. Tens of thousands puts it in perspective.
Yeah, it probably won't. I'm probably light on that. Yeah. But, you know, basically, if I were to tell you there was any thing that would be a concern for us to be in business, we've been pretty tough with the Cedar, would be the lack of wood supply. And I see that kind of headed down the wrong road. I see that the federal timber would be probably the base for the infrastructure that's so needed so timber can be managed. If you don't have a place to take the logs, and you don't have to manage. Anyway, I hope I didn't bore you with this.
No,
I have a few other issues, but I think I'll
Okay.